Alrighty, good afternoon, folks. This is Hajim Zero here, back with another quick movie review. This one is kind of one of my favorites. It's just by looking at it, you probably can assume what it is, but because there's a lot of, well, you may think it's a lot of people's favorites before I'm going to say the title that comes out of my mouth. This is Terminator Salvation. A lot of y'all thought it was Terminator 2, but now that I think about it, the title possibly is going to give it away. But so I don't know, me just now thinking about it. But next to Terminator 2 and Terminator 1, this is one of my favorites. Despite of what a lot of people said, even the critics. And just to let you know, James Cameron had also liked this one. It was kind of funny and odd when Schwarzenegger said this one had sucked, but I think he only said that because technically he wasn't in it, even though, spoiler alert, they CG'd him at the end just to tip a nod off to it. So I'm going to tell what the synopsis is, and I'm going to tell you a real reason why I like it and why a couple people do like it. Even my uncle had liked it, and me and him are very critical about movies, especially, or just a lot of things in pop media in general. You know, me and him love Star Wars and Dragon Ball Z, but he finally sees in my way of how the writing on both of those mediums have kind of gotten a little bit bad. Well, not bad, but it's not, it's kind of vague. You know, I'm not going to try to bash it too completely because I haven't seen the movies, but from reading the synopsis online about at least The Force Awakens, it really, you know, looks like episode 4. It's just a couple pieces moved around on the puzzle. But back to this. The story takes place post Judgment Day, also chronologically after Terminator 3. So the bombs had already fell, and it's just mankind fighting the machines when they became self-aware. Now, it was funny because up to interpretation, when I saw the third movie, I thought right after, you know, when the bombs fell and everything, then the machines came up and risen. But technically, that's not what happened. A lot of the online technology, of course, had most likely had failed and shut down, and then that's when the rest of the military in the world had caught on that, you know, the machines are now becoming the enemy. They were building, you know, certain Skynet branches were building all types of new machines and new ways of killing mankind. But it really didn't fully explain like some kind of source of the machines, you know, becoming fully self-aware. It's more like, did we program it a consciousness, or did the consciousness develop? And I think throughout the whole series, and including the Matrix, that was a good, very deep question. And a little bit when I'm going to talk about the story, this might correlate with the Matrix a little bit. Actually, a lot of it does, because it was something that Hollywood didn't really tell you about this piece and the Matrix itself. So, pretty much the bombs fell. That's pretty much what happened after the third movie. But with this one, it really told the story about a guy named Marcus Wright. He was a death row inmate. He pretty much, how can I say this? He was on death row. I think his cop and his brother had got killed, or he was the reason for it. They really didn't go into much detail. He was just a guilty man not looking for a second chance. So he donated his body to science, and come to find out they were creating prototype Terminators to put into certain people that the original host wasn't even a part of. If you see the third movie, the special features, it gave a reason, you know, why Schwarzenegger, you know, the guy who they used the model replicant after, looked like him all the time. So, and if you watch the Sarah Connor series, I think they used more people as a prototype too, except they were sending them back to the past to kill Connor. But that's a whole other topic. I pretty much like this one because of that side story, and it still came together really, really well at the end of the movie. So Marcus, pretty much, he wakes up, I think, in 2018, in a post-apocalyptic 2018, and he meets Kyle Reese. He doesn't know, of course, the audience knows how important Kyle Reese is, but Kyle Reese is like a teenager, and they were trying to get out of LA, you know, to find John Connor. Eventually, they get captured, and somewhat split and separated. Marcus Wright he finds Connor, but of course Connor doesn't trust him. And then Connor's, one of the best lines I like in the movie when he said that you and I have been at war before either one of us have existed. He's like, you killed my father, Kyle Reese. You tried killing my mother, Sarah Connor. And he's like, you will not kill me. And then Marcus is like, if I wanted to kill him, I would have did it when I was in LA. He's like, I didn't know who you were till 2 days ago. So just loving Sam Worthington and Christian Bale's performance. I really want to see them two do more movies together. It's just this is the only one. And even looking at Sam Worthington's resume and his backstory, he was a struggling actor as well. And this is one of the best performances I've seen him in. He didn't do that bad in Avatar, but those are the only two movies that really stand out. I can't really think of anything else that he's been in recently. I think he did a movie with Jennifer Lawrence, but I haven't watched it. But yeah, I would love to see him in more films because he really had that scruffy underdog feel, and of course, just hearing that brief about his story, how he was homeless and he really, dug himself out of the hole. But I realize I'm jumping all over the place. So, make a long story short, John Connor's trying to save really Kyle Reese, so of course he can send him back in time. And that's when the movie ends. Marcus Wright, he ends up dying. I think John needed a heart transplant, and he ended up giving it to him. So the good thing about the prototype Terminators is that they have some human parts, but most of them is machine. It's kind of like with the androids from Dragon Ball Z. A few of them. I think 17 and 18, they still had human parts, but most of them was mechanical. So, they may have had different terms. I think that's what Android really is. It has some human elements to it, just how it looks on the outside, but it's technically internally, it has, either a heart, a lung, something of its former human self, still there. But the good thing is that the reason why I mentioned the Matrix is because with the character Marcus Wright, even though Skynet had built him to be a Terminator, he still had free will and conscience. He wasn't programmed to be like the T-1000 or the T-8000, which was their efficient, killing machine, I believe. I could be wrong on the model, but it was the one that was Arnold Schwarzenegger from Terminator 1. That he wasn't programmed like him. He still had human elements about him, and he was pretty much an infiltration, machine. I think Skynet set it up to whether if he wanted to do it or infiltrate to do it or not, he was still being tracked. Yeah, so it was a really good way to see it that he still had choice, because he does end up saving Connor at the end of the movie. So that was a nice contrast. Common and Bryce Howard something, the one that played Gwen Stacy in Spider-Man 3, she's in this movie, and Moon Bloodgood is in this movie. She was in that, they say, god awful Street Fighter movie. I believe that she was C Viper, but she was in that film. That's how I kind of know of her. But to get some of the behind the scenes stuff, the reason why I mentioned the Matrix is because in Hollywood they said that the Matrix and a Terminator was actually one story. At one point, it was based. The whole Matrix premise was based off of an African American, African, I'm gonna just say black lady in Australia who was really credited as being the real oracle of the Matrix. She came up with the whole philosophy, behind it. But of course, like the Nostalgia Critic said, there have been other films that touched on alternate reality and simulations, all that. It's just that the Matrix was the first to put a lot more detail into it and be more clever about it, which is kind of true. Total Recall is another one that comes to mind. The original Total Recall and Vanilla Sky, it really played on, are you still awake or are you still dreaming? But the real reason why I mentioned the Matrix and Terminator, because when you see the Second Renaissance anime short where it showed the real fall of man and how machines were risen up, and then you see this, it kind of correlates that it's technically the same story, except this had more detail of what happened, in between there. And just cutting out the Matrix out of the talk for a brief second. The thing what I don't like about the series now is that this was supposed to be the setup for the next trilogy, because if you see the original trilogy, we never saw the future of what happened when the bomb fell. We only heard about it and it leading up to it potentially. And then with this movie, we finally saw the beginning phases of the first wave of the resistance. And then, the next movie, what I was hoping to see was, them having advanced weaponry and what you saw in the flashbacks in the first Terminator movie. That's what I was hoping to see. But when Genesis had showed up, it completely retconned all that. And and to be honest, I believe they only did that shit to pretty much to cast an older Arnold Schwarzenegger to be more relevant. And to be honest, they still didn't have to do that. What they could have done, they could have still had that same soldier that they based the model off of be alive, and him still be alive in the future at that point, right after the original movie that I'm thinking after this one. So that's what pissed me off about it, was that, they completely retconned the whole thing. Now, I'm not going to piss on the movie entirely because, number one, I haven't seen it. And then two, Jai Courtney and that Game of Thrones actress is in it. And there are some good actors. So I'm not going to, actors and actresses. So that's why I don't want to completely bash. I really want to bash on the fact whose idea was it to do this. A little bit could have been Arnold, but I really don't know. But the way I personally would have set up the next movie right after this one, I would have set up to the point where they finally got those advanced weapons that we saw in Terminator 1 in the flashback, and it would have built, of course, Kyle Reese would have been older, and it would have set up to when, John would have sent him back in time, and it would have gave more emphasis on Connor passing the mantle on to somebody else, to be the next savior. Because in the third movie, the one of the T-800s had told him, yeah, I'm the one that ended up killing you, and then that's when they captured me and reprogrammed me and sent me back in time to protect you at another point in time. So that's what I personally had would have ended the third movie. The second movie would have ended around, Kyle Reese finally being sent back to 1984. So, and then him eventually passing the mantle to Kyle and to somebody else to keep on the resistance, because he knew about his death from what the Terminator had told him in 2003. So, that's what they could have done. A lot of the fans in the series, the deep hardcore fans of the first original two movies, that's what they would have argued on. We really wanted to see that future in the next trilogy, and also what happened right after Connor had died. So, that would have been a much more interesting story. That's just my opinion. That's just how I see it. And then, of course, it was a cool fan theory at one point before Genesis came out that the timeline could have been on a loop. But I think with Genesis, I think they said somebody had saw that loop and wanted to change it. So that's why you had two Terminators at one certain point in time in the aging one, and all this, that, and the other. So it just blows that with Genesis, I think they were trying to capture a little bit of the moment from the second movie. Of course, that Cyberdyne had came back, and again, they could have saved that for the second movie, for the movie right after this one. Well, technically they did, but they could have still did it in a much more efficient way. But that's just my opinion on it. I really like this movie. Between all the Terminator movies, Terminator 1, 2, and this one are like the top good ones to me. I couldn't understand why people didn't like this one at all. They never really gave me an efficient reason. I think it was that herd mentality, just to hate on something, because people they don't accept change, and 9 times out of 10, studios, it is on them 9 times out of 10 as well, because they want to rush a product or they want to cash in on someone coming back like Schwarzenegger or whatnot. But it has to be a balance that comes with the storytelling. Sometimes you can't please everybody. You know, some people will even say Terminator 3 really wasn't that bad to them. That's just their opinion. It did have a cool concept with the mix between, the Cyberdyne and the actual body machine itself. That concept to me was pretty cool, seeing it at 13. So that's the only one good thing I will say about it. Is just that at times people do have a herd mentality. If they say something sucks and then they put out all the reasons why they want to make fun of it and why it's bad, and then the same time when people say when a movie or something is really really good, but someone else can break down all the bad flaws of it. So that's just how how I see it. The one bad thing I can say about the movie was the trailer. The trailer had kind of given it away that Marcus was a Terminator, and they could have really saved that, and the sad part, when you see the trailer, right around the end of the trailer, that's when they revealed that he was a Terminator. I was like, you could have saved that in the movie, like, because if you go in and see this film without seeing the trailer, you will believe that Marcus, what really was human, like, because I think right around the ending of the second act of the film, that's when it was finally revealed that he was a Terminator, when they strung him up on the chain and he saw all the robotic parts. So other than that, the effects in this is really good. It was a cross between practical and CG and miniatures. Of course, they used CG when they needed to. One of the best effects I really liked was in the beginning when Connor infiltrates the hull with the machines, and he comes back up later, and then he's attacked by one, and it's a guy in a motion capture suit. Because I seen this movie in theaters, and it looked really really good in theaters, and I was going back and looking at it every time. I stop everything just to watch that scene when he's fighting with that half broken Terminator, and behind the scenes they had a guy in a motion capture suit, so the actors had something to work with. That fooled me completely. I really thought it was a stuntman in a couple of the scene in the shots, messing around with a very very good animatronic, and that's not what it was. So even though they did use animatronics in certain shots, I believe in Skynet Central, where I had one of them walking around with the machine gun, they did. The one Terminator that was withered down and busted up that Marcus encounters and Kyle resets the trap for, that was a guy in a suit, and that one was done really 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 well. So the effects on this were really good. How they say, some people say a movie overuses CG, which I kind of do believe. Some things should be left up to the imagination, or you should actually invest in doing practical effects. So, we can't really heavily tell. The only recent movie I can think of where they didn't use that much CG in an action movie was Captain America: Winter Soldier. They only used CG when they needed to, like for Falcon's wings. I think for some of those helicarrier scenes they did, but I think out of all the Marvel movies, that's the only one that's used, not that much CG. It's, like I said, it's only when it's needed. If it's for safety reasons or this, that, and the other, or time, sometimes that's acceptable. But when I hear stories that certain directors, they wanted to do certain things differently, they just didn't have enough time, and sometimes not enough money. So that's pretty much all I can say. Other than that, on a scale to 1 to 10, I give this movie an 8. It's just the fact, to me, the trailer. First, the trailer is what got me to go see the movie, and then all the actors that were in it. Christian Bale, Common, Bryce Dallas Howard. I finally got her name. Moon Bloodgood. I can't remember this late actor's name. The one that played Kyle Reese. It was Anton something, but he's also a very good actor. I seen him in what was it, Alpha Dog with Justin Timberlake, and and I can't remember the Amanda Seyfried, I believe, was in it, and he's a very, very good actor. I was heartbroken when I heard he had passed at that time. I think like 2 years ago. But he was a very good, convincing Kyle Reese. If he was still alive, I was really hoping they would have cast him and Christian Bale again to be in the same roles. But other than that, that's pretty much all I have to say for the movie. I will see you in the next one and talk to you guys later. Peace.